So I'm going to keep it short. As Rafael mentioned, we do publish annual report every year with details of the situation of the death penalty in Iran. I would like to introduce our organization, Iran Human Rights. We started in about 2005 with a group of human rights defenders inside Iran. So during these years, we have managed to develop a broad network inside the country. We are, of course, members of the World Coalition Against the Death Penalty, and we collaborate with the ECPM and also the advocates who are here, Amy, in the UN advocacy. So if you want to visit our site, you can go there or follow us on Twitter to get the disturbing news of the death penalty as it happens, because it happens very often in Iran. In Iran, we have executions every day, more or less. So if you go and look at our Twitter, you will see how often we have to publish this news. And development has been very dramatic in the last 10 years, actually also before then. So it has been going upwards. And 2014, in the report we published that Rafael mentioned, we had the highest number of annual executions in 15 to 20 years. So we thought that we have reached a top. But unfortunately, that's not the case, because only in the first 5 months of this year, we have 511 executions so far. So it is going absolutely the wrong way. And in particular for this year, most of the executions are for drug offenses. Normally, they are the majority of executions, but this year the numbers are even higher. So in average, about 3 people are executed in Iran every single day. And about our sources, this is based on the last year's report. Normally, between 30 to 50% of all numbers are announced by the authorities, because not all executions are announced. There is no transparency. So that's why we depend on our networks inside the country. And these networks could be other prisoners. I'm going to show you the video that we have, from inside the prison. Also conversations we have with 2 of the death row prisoners. This is, of course, a risky job. If a person who talks to us is caught, it could cost his or her life. So they are taking a huge risk when they actually talk to us, but they want to do it because they know that the international reaction sometimes is the only thing that can save them. So I will show you. We talked to 2 prisoners. One of them, we changed the name, the voice, because we don't want them to be recognized. But one of them said, "You don't need to change my voice. I have nothing to lose. They can execute me anytime. So bring my voice to the world." So that's why you are representing the world now, and I want to bring their voice to you. So what we do is that when we document an execution which is not official, we must have at least 2 independent sources that can confirm that with all the details. So the actual number is actually much higher. So the numbers that you show don't show the whole reality. This is one way of documentation. For instance, when we get news of execution this is in Kerman some months ago, last year, and then beside the testimonies, we also could get pictures of where these prisoners were buried, so that the names and the dates of their execution is also stated. So we have documentation for the cases that we present. I'm not going to talk about minor juvenile execution. Iran is the biggest executioner of juvenile offenders. Last year, we had 14 juvenile offenders executed. One of them was an Afghan citizen that we gave special attention to. Jannat Mir was only 13-year-old when somebody in Afghanistan told him to, if he carries something from there to Iran, just one travel and comes back, they can make his family rich. So he did it without telling the family. He was caught, and he called the family from the prison, and at that time, he was sentenced to death. He was executed when he was 15-year-old, and the family didn't get the body. They traveled to Isfahan. That's where he was executed. They didn't have money to bring the body back, so he was buried in Isfahan. His case has been mentioned by the UN General Secretary Ban Ki-moon in his report last year, based on our report. And so these juveniles are mainly executed for murder, but at least 2 of them were executed for drug-related charges. So they are not armed terrorist groups who are smuggling, as Iranian authorities claim. At least these 2 juveniles were not. We are not going to talk about execution methods, that it's by hanging, but it's slow strangulation. It takes often several minutes until the person dies. And we are not going to talk about children watching the executions. We see very often picture of children watching the executions. UN special rapporteurs on arbitrary execution and on situation in Iran, Ahmad Shahid and Christopher Haynes, they condemned these executions. Iranian authorities responded to that because with the new government, Iran has a much more responsive attitude to the international community. So they responded to the statement saying that we seldom do public executions, and whenever they happened, we take measures to avoid children watching. But latest, if you go to our website, you will see 2 days ago we had a public execution, and you see small children on the first line watching the executions. And this is another example. So back to drug-related executions. These are the numbers in the last 5 years. By today, at least 2,300 have been executed for drug-related charges. So who are they? According to the law, possession of up to 30 grams of certain narcotics can be sentenced to death. Another issue which is important is that these people do not have right to appeal. They are sentenced to death by the Revolution Court behind the closed doors. Testimonies that we have, none of the people we have talked to say that they had a lawyer from the beginning. All of them say that they were subjected to torture and had to confess. And then there are a large number of Afghan citizens among them. And our experience is that these people who are executed for drug-related charges are mainly among the marginalized part of the Iranian society, whether they are people, Iranians who live in poverty, whether they are Afghans, but they are not, they don't have the economy to get enough attention or to get good lawyers. United Nations Office for Drugs and Crimes, as you heard earlier today, cooperates with Iran. They have been doing it for many years, fighting drug trafficking. This is the head of the agency, Yuri Fedotov, who last year actually praised Iran's fight against the drugs, saying that it's very impressive because what they do is that they count how many tons of drugs Iran has managed to seize. And that's a sign of success. And if you look at UNODC reports, you see this is a very bad copy from one of these reports. They show that, again, how many tons of opium is seized, and this is sign of success. What you don't find in the UNODC reports is whether drug trafficking has been decreased or addiction has been decreased, and how many people were executed for these amount of drugs being seized. It is never mentioned in UNODC reports. But we have some numbers. Tehran Police Department earlier this year published a report saying that only in 2014, only in Tehran, each day 140 people were arrested for drug trafficking. This is a very large number, only in one city, 140 every day. And they also reported 30% increase in the number of women who died of overdose. So trafficking has not decreased, addiction has not decreased, number of executions have increased, but still United Nations Office for Drugs and Crimes, they praise Iran's fight against drugs. So what about Iran's policy? There has been something happening in the past year. This is Javad Larijani, head of the Iranian Judiciary's Human Rights Council. In March, he in Geneva said that the world should be grateful to us for this great service to the humanity. It was his response when he was asked about high number of executions for drug-related charges, because he said that we are on the front line of the international fight against drug trafficking. We are fighting for you. If we don't do this, smugglers will come to Europe from Afghanistan. So that's what they say. And they say that these people are armed smugglers who are use the money to finance terrorism, and that's why we execute them. None of our testimonies show that. And if you look at the reports that Iranian media publish, very few of them are actually armed smugglers. But this rhetoric has changed. Whether it's changed in practice or rhetoric, I don't know. But I think that some countries, some European countries who are funding the UNODC project have been putting pressure on Iran. Because the same gentleman, I mean, this is the same picture, but he looks almost the same, 10 months later, says that in an interview with France 24, that no one is happy to see the number of executions is high. So you see, completely different. Instead of saying you should celebrate us, they say even he is not happy about the high number. And we should change this law. And if you are successful to pass it in the parliament, you know, the numbers will decrease. And that was very good news. It was in December. So we were a bit skeptical because we have experience, you know, following human rights issues in Iran. But still, if that's true, that's a huge success. And also prisoners inside the prison heard about it. But what has happened since then? Unfortunately, it's the complete opposite. So the focus of the day is Ghezelhesar prison. You should remember this name. Probably it will be known in some years. Maybe people will read about it. In the history books, I hope that we don't come that far, but we are in danger of getting there. This is one of the biggest prisons in Iran. It's right outside Tehran. 13,000 prisoners for drug offenses in this prison, many of them sentenced to death. A new wave of execution is taking place in this prison. Since May, about 80 people have been executed that we have verified. Today we heard, it's not still confirmed, that 10 women were executed in this prison. We know that, and we have their pictures, that 13 are in the quarantine, in this, the solitary confinement of this prison, waiting to be executed. So every week or several times a week we hear about groups of prisoners being executed here, and if this continues, maybe this number will decrease dramatically. And then I think you will be reading about Ghezelhesar in the history books. But let's look at the video that I mentioned, that we have managed to talk to some of the death row prisoners inside this prison after this execution started, and also a short video. So if maybe we could turn off the lights. Yes, so the scene you say that they said goodbye, we have also received the video of that gentleman after he was executed. It's not appropriate to show this, so we are not showing it, but we will send it to United Nations for documentation. So why are we here? What I really hope that, you see, when we talk to these prisoners, they are in a very desperate situation. They can be executed any day. They don't know when is their turn. And we are their only voice. We are very few. So now I hope that you will also be their voice. Do whatever you want. Talk to whoever you want. The sooner we get an international reaction, maybe we can actually manage to save some of these prisoners. They are hoping that people outside do something for them. So I think I stop here, and if you have any questions, you can ask. Yes?